Today we celebrate this amazing feast of the resurrection when Jesus rises from the dead. And it's this is a difficult thing to wrap your heads around. It's such a magnificent event that we call Easter the Queen of Feasts in the church, because the whole thing of Christianity starts with this feast, when Jesus comes back from the dead. It's at the very center of our faith. And it changed everything. It changed everything in the ancient world, too. You know, even in the ancient world, there were a couple of things that were absolutely inevitable. Death and taxes. And they paid taxes in the ancient world, a lot of taxes to the Romans, and they didn't like it then either. But Jesus comes back from the dead and changes the formula. That now someone has done something that seemed impossible. That the inevitable is not what it appeared to be. So we have this event on Easter morning 2,000 years ago. And the tomb was just outside the ancient city of Jerusalem. And on that first day of the week, when the Sabbath has passed, the women are going to the tomb. Now, I want you to notice something. The Sabbath is passed because God is making a new Sabbath. The old Sabbath focused on the law and the teaching of the law. The new Sabbath is focused on Jesus and what has been accomplished through him and all of that we know through the Gospels. The Sabbath has been changed because of the resurrection. The old Sabbath was something like a candle lit in the dark. And the new Sabbath is like the sun coming up. It has transformed everything. It has completely overwhelmed what the old Sabbath was about. And the three women are approaching the tomb, not knowing what they're about to find. They've brought spices that so they can anoint the body of their dear, dear friend who was crucified on the preceding Friday on Calvary. Their hearts had to be heavy with grief. And I can't imagine the kind of pain, because they loved him so dearly. And as they come closer to his tomb, they wonder, who shall roll away the stone? Who shall roll away the stone? And the stone, I mean, what Pastor Jeremy was just telling us, the stone was a big deal because, you know, they didn't have metal caskets in the ancient world. They did not put people into stone vaults. They didn't really dig graves down into the ground. That when they buried someone, they would cut into the rock on the side of a hill, and they would create a small room where they could place the body that had been wrapped. And it had been anointed with spices. But remember, it was a hot climate, and they would do this quickly because bodies would begin to deteriorate very rapidly. And when they would create one of these tombs cut into the side of the hill, they had to block the entry because grave robbing was a well-developed sport back then. And they would find a stone that they could roll in front of the entry. And this stone it had to be large to make it as difficult as possible for the grave robbers. And to make it even more difficult, they would cut a little slip trench, a couple of feet long, a couple of feet wide to accommodate the size stone, and a couple of feet deep. So when they rolled that stone in front of that entry, it dropped into the slot. So you have 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, I don't know, a 2-ton stone rolled into place and dropped into this little trench. Who will roll away the stone was an important question. It could not possibly be moved by one person. Probably couldn't have been moved by 2 or more because they had to lift it before they rolled it. But to their amazement, the stone is already rolled away. And looking into the tomb, they discover a young man dressed all in white, who must be an angel. And they're frightened. But the angel tells them, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. You seek Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He is risen. He is not here. Go tell the disciples and Peter that he goes before you into Galilee, and there you shall see him, as he said to you. But you and I are like those first disciples, like those women going to the grave on that day. We've heard the promises of God. We've heard about the power of God. He promised to the thief on the cross, today you will be with me in paradise. We've heard Jesus teach, I am the resurrection and I am the life. Nevertheless, the women go to the tomb on that morning 2,000 years ago expecting death. They go expecting death. And when they come to the grave on that morning, in spite of all of Jesus' promises, in spite of all the miracles they've seen, they go expecting death. And you and I are like that too. We go with this terrible feeling that maybe it isn't true. We go with this pessimism in our hearts. And it doesn't really matter how long you go to church, how much you read your Bible, how many sermons you hear and remember. There's this terrible doubt that humans have to live with. And, Sigmund Freud called this kind of a death instinct that all human beings seem to have, all animals, that deep down inside us we have this terrible fear that this is all there is.